Cool.
Hey guys, it's Devin here with Make Anything, and I've got to say, I'm working on some really cool 3D printing projects at the moment, but none of them are quite ready for me to show to you today, so instead I figured I would do another 3D pen video. Today, I decided it's about time to try doodling with some flexible filament. So I've got this Flexy Filament by 3Doodler, and I'm going to be using it with their 3Doodler Pro pen. I was really happy with how my 3D pen bugs came out last 3D pen project. 3D pens just seem to work really well for organic things. So today we're doing another animal, but we're going underwater and making a seahorse today. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Maybe you can follow along and make one yourself. Let's get right to it. All right, I've got my Flexi Filament, my 3Doodler Pro, and I'm gonna start out with this Super Fruit pack. Since I like the transparency, I think that'll make a good base to build on top of. So I'm gonna start off with this yellow. And this filament works best between 200 and 230 degrees Celsius. So I'll go right at the middle point of 215. And after I make sure that the filament is coming out nice and smoothly, I'll go ahead and start by drawing the side profile of my seahorse, since that is kind of the distinguishing shape that defines this animal. So I'm just freehanding this here, but if you have trouble doing that, you can always draw out your design first and place it underneath the plastic sheet and then trace that out, or you can even print out a photo you find online. Next, we want to start breaking this form up into smaller shapes. So I'm going to start by outlining the jaw here and kind of getting that head shape, and then I'll draw these contour lines following the edges of the body all the way down from the head to the tip of the tail. I'm going to divide the body into these kind of square-like shapes. If you take a look at a photo of a seahorse, it actually is broken up into all these little sections, so it's really easy to figure out what to do with the 3D pen. I'll go back up to the head and add some facial features there. Well, most importantly, the eye. And then I'm going to go around the outline and add these spines that run down the back of the seahorse. They've also got this little fin on the back that somehow controls their movement, and then those little spines will run all the way down the tail. Now that we've got that profile drawn out and a good amount of detail, we'll start filling this in. I switched to the orange filament here to start adding some color and variation, and I'm just going to fill this thing in solid, but following those lines that I drew earlier to make it look nice and neat. I was having a bit of trouble distinguishing the colors, so I just stuck a piece of white paper underneath, and that helps a lot. And then I'll continue filling it in. It actually looks really cool already, just flat like this. And you know, that's another thing you can do. You can just draw this on a window or something, create some two-dimensional art. But well, that would just be too easy. So I'm going to try and make this thing 3D. And the way I'm going to do that is by running over some of those inner contour lines that I drew earlier. I switched to a pink filament here, and I'm just going to trace out the lines that will define the widest points of this seahorse. And I'll just keep drawing over those same exact lines, building up a little bridge of sorts until it gets to the height that I need it to be. It also helps to draw some bridges going between the lines to start fleshing out the structure and just to add some strength so that these walls don't get too wobbly. I want this stomach section to be the widest point, so I'm going to run over those walls a little bit more than the rest and kind of build it up right here at the belly to get that highest point there. So I've got the dimension now, and I just need to switch back to yellow and fill in all these sections. So I'll just go back and forth between the edge of the profile and the top of that bridge, and that's how I get a more solid looking form without having to use a ton of filament. By the way, when I'm filming this, I try to not move things around too much, but it really helps to reposition the model instead of having to move your hand at weird angles. So don't be afraid to stop and readjust the angle of your model as you're doing this. So we got the sides, and we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the nose here and on this top panel as well. With that, we've basically established the form of half of our seahorse. So at this point, we've got to peel it off. And this filament sticks down really well to this 3-doodler mat, but it's also really sturdy, so I managed to get it off without breaking any parts off. So now we can just flip it over and repeat those same steps to add thickness to this other side as well. Alright, we've got a really nice looking form for the seahorse now, which means it's time for the fun part, adding the details. I'm going to open up a new pack of filaments here. I want to use some more opaque colors, which I think will look really nice, contrasting against that transparent filament I started with. I'll start with the eyes, just holding the pen in place and creating this big blob of purple filament. It's always really difficult to get the eyes lined up perfectly, but I think I did a pretty good job. Now I'm going to switch to white, which I think will make a nice contrast, and I'll start by outlining the eye sockets. And with that same white filament, I'm basically going to trace out all of the edges on my seahorse, and I have the pen set to a really low speed, that way I can get these really thin lines. I'm just drawing in all kinds of detail here, and I'm also going to draw out all these squarish sections again that make a seahorse look so cool. As a final touch, I decided to switch back to purple and just draw these little dots. And I'm going to put these dots all over my seahorse to just make it look really elaborate, basically wherever the white lines intersect or end. This is pretty time consuming, but as you can see, the results are well worth it. Finally, we need a way to display this seahorse. It looks really cool, but it can't stand up, so I decided I would make it a hanging piece. So I'll start by drawing this little loop in clear filament, and I'll just stick that right on top of the head of the seahorse using a hot blob of this clear filament. I'll draw another loop here, which is basically an 8, and I'll tie that onto the other end of this kite string so that I have a little loop to hang this thing off of. Alright, there we have it, a really stunning seahorse. I really love the way that this filament catches light at the right angles, and I bet you're eager to see this thing actually flex. So here it is. Sure enough, that flexible filament does indeed flex really nicely. It's super sturdy and it pops right back into place. I hope you guys will agree that this was another very successful 3D pen project. I'm realizing that this flexible filament is really useful. Even if you're not necessarily creating a part that needs to be flexible, it's just really strong. You can drop it and chuck it across the room and it still won't break. I think that's pretty awesome. As always, I'd love to hear what you guys think, so if you have any feedback on this, or if you have ideas for other things I could make with the 3D pen or a 3D printer, leave me a comment and I'll try to read as many of those as I can. Okay, well, until next time, I'm Devin, this is Make Anything, and as always, don't forget to stay inspired.